Hello, and welcome to the 8th episode of By the Fire with the Shamana, a short transmission bringing shamanic wisdom into your life, one conversation by the fire at a time. It is intended as a form of medicine to heal, open perspective, and raise consciousness to help you regain more freedom and power over your life. If you are curious to understand why excessive guilt deeply affects your identity and how shamanic wisdom can help you heal from it, today's episode is for you. Before we begin, I want to invite you to pause for a moment. You are obviously coming from other activities, other thoughts, and right now we are opening together a sacred space for this transmission. So I invite you to just take a few deep breaths and feel the air you breathe circulating through your whole body, through each of your cells. Feel your whole body relaxing, becoming more present, more receptive, ready to activate your listening and learning abilities. And as you arrive more fully into this space, ask yourself, what is your state in this moment? How do you feel? Whether you feel good or you feel bad, everything is valid. If there is a comment section on the app where you're listening to this episode, I invite you to write how you feel there so we can include it together in this sacred space. Now, when you feel ready, enter. As a human being, we have all already experienced what guilt feels like. Not intellectually, but physically. You know, the weight it can create inside the body, the way it stays after the situation is over, the way it can keep part of your energy attached to the past. We've all been through it at one point or another. Hopefully, most forms of guilt are temporary. They are uncomfortable, painful, but they move through us. We learn from them, we repair when necessary, and eventually life continues. But in certain situations, when guilt is attached to a really tragic event, for instance, it can transform into excessive guilt, as if the emotion was trying to match the gravity of what happened. And excessive guilt is what I would call sticky emotion, because it sticks to your nervous system. It does not simply pass through you like a wave. It stays, it repeats, it attaches itself to the way you see yourself. It invades your life, it damages your identity. And one of the reasons guilt affects us so deeply is because it resonates in a different way than some other emotions. For instance, when you feel sadness, sadness says, I have lost something. When you experience fear, the message of fear is something is threatening my safety. But what guilt often says is the problem is me. It attacks you at your core. It damages your self-image. And this is where your life force gets blocked. Because you cannot move forward freely when you consider yourself as the mistake itself, right? And so when guilt stays for too long, it keeps you in self-punishment instead of responsibility, in shame instead of clarity. When something painful happens, the human mind immediately tries to understand what happened and regain a sense of control. Because the idea that I had no control or there is nothing else I could have done is extremely difficult for the nervous system to accept. And guilt sometimes protects the illusion that you could have repaired, that you could have saved everyone, that you could have prevented the situation or controlled the outcome. And it takes a certain level of inner maturity just to accept that you did your best, that there was no perfect solution, that life contains situations that are not fully under human control. Now, this is where the shamanic perspective becomes interesting. In shamanic wisdom, emotions are not viewed as good or bad. They are basically information. They are movement of energy carrying information about what is happening inside your inner world at a given moment. And from this perspective, no emotion is useless, not even guilt. Okay? The goal is never to suppress the emotion, and it is not to stay trapped inside it forever either. The goal is to understand what the emotion is trying to reveal. Because once consciousness enters the emotion, you regain the ability to decide what you want to do with it. Now, something else that is important to understand is that in many shamanic traditions, guilt itself is actually not a central concept. The idea is not you are bad. The idea is much closer to you became misaligned, or you broke an inner or relational harmony, which changes everything because the perspective is no longer I am bad, but rather something in my actions created imbalance. And from that perspective, the role of guilt is not endless self-punishment. Its role is awareness, responsibility, repair, and evolution. It was never meant to become a permanent inner prison. So the real question becomes, how do you repair? How do you restore harmony? How do you learn from it? How do you become conscious again? How do you return to the cycle? And this is also why in some ancient spiritual traditions, excessive guilt is actually viewed as another form of ego. Because endlessly punishing yourself does not repair the world. At some point, guilt becomes self-fixation. It becomes identity. It prevents you from fully returning to life itself. Almost like saying unconsciously, if it continues suffering long enough, or if the suffering continues long enough, maybe it will prove that I am a good person. But reality is prolonged suffering does not necessarily repair the damage. It doesn't help other people. It does not restore balance. What ancient traditions try to do instead is not erase responsibility. It is transform guilt into awareness, repair, humility, wisdom, and embodied responsibilities. It's really about learning without remaining imprisoned. And when it becomes an identity, it can destroy the person as much as the original mistake itself. As in every episode now, I would like us to just experience this teaching together. Before we begin this exercise, just a quick reminder to use your judgment and to stay safe if you're driving or doing any activity that requires your full attention. Now, if you feel comfortable, I invite you to gently close your eyes for a moment and simply take a slow breath. Allow your body to soften a little. Relax your shoulders, your jaw, your face, and simply notice the space your body is occupying right now. There's nothing to judge or to change. The goal is just to observe with honesty and consciousness. Now, bring into your awareness a situation connected to guilt. It doesn't have to be the most traumatic situation of your life, but just a situation that emotionally still stays with you. Take a moment to notice what happens inside your body as you reconnect with that situation. Notice where the sensation lives inside you. Just observe, allow the sensation to exist, recognize its presence. How much space does this guilt still occupy inside you today? Has the emotion softened with time? Is this guilt helping you grow today? Is it helping you become more conscious, more responsible, more aligned? Or has it now become a form of self-punishment that simply keeps suffering alive inside you? Because obviously that's not the same thing. There's a difference between learning and remaining stuck in suffering. Now take one slow breath again and ask yourself one final question. What would healing look like here without denying responsibility? Could you allow it? Just stay with that question for a moment. And if you feel the need to write what comes up inside you, allow yourself to do that. Just simply allow awareness to begin moving inside you. As every week, I would like now to leave you with a simple integration practice to continue exploring this concept during the week ahead. So this week, I invite you to simply observe the moments where guilt appears inside your everyday life. Notice what or who activates it. What happens inside your body when it appears, and how long part of your energy remains attached to the situation afterwards. And just ask yourself, is this emotion helping me move forward with more consciousness? Or is it keeping part of me stuck in the same emotional space? By bringing more consciousness to the way guilt moves inside your inner world, things slowly begin to shift. And you will learn how to return more quickly to an aligned state. What this episode invites us to remember is that from a shamanic perspective, one of the deepest antidotes to guilt is becoming useful to life again, coming back into presence, consciousness, and relationship with life instead of remaining trapped inside self-condemnation. Because at some point, guilt either becomes a passage or an identity. And when it becomes an identity, it can destroy the person as much as the original mistake itself. Before we close this sacred space together, I invite you to take one final deep breath. You inhale through the nose and you exhale through the mouth. And you simply notice how you feel compared to the beginning of the episode. You can also take a mental note about what you want to take with you from this moment by the fire today. We can now close this sacred transmission space together. The journey continues within you. Walk gently, walk consciously, and remember, you are never walking alone. If the energy of this transmission resonated with you, I would be truly grateful if you choose to share it as you feel appropriate. Because every time this sacred space is shared, its energy continues to expand and reach the people who may need it most. You can also continue and deepen the journey with me on Substack. This is where I share Whispers from the Shamana, a weekly publication to nourish your deeper self and softly awaken the shaman within. The address is thedigitalshamana with an A at the end, .substack.com. Thank you truly for your presence here today, for taking this moment for yourself, and for stepping into this space. And I will see you by the fire again very soon.